bags are packed, are you ready to go? This time tomorrow we'll be on the road, riding with you in the sunnier days. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Welcome to the WifeSavers podcast, where multi-award-winning author and global marriage educator Ramona Zabriskie provides answers to your real wife questions. Our goal is to help you appreciate your womanhood, prioritize your personal development, and craft a powerful partnership with the man in your life. Hi, I'm Hannah Allen, and I'm proud to introduce my parents, Ramona and Dale Zabriskie. And yes, this is how they talk all the time. Let's listen.
Taking the good with the ups and downs.
Hi, this is Dale Zabriskie. As usual, across the table from Ramona Zabriskie, my favorite critic. You are.
For 41 years.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. Your favorite critic?
Yeah. My favorite
Where
critic.
did you come up with... I don't mean to be critical, but that's a really bad entrance.
No, it's true. I think that, well, you know, my favorite helper, my favorite informer.
Interesting. Informer. I see.
Educator.
Educator. Well,
Yeah.
I could say the same of you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I was hoping I did equal playing
But
level
that's
here.
an interesting point.
Yeah?
It's all how you look at it.
It is. It's all how you perceive.
It's also how you intend. Maybe is what the intention
From a
is?
delivery standpoint.
I don't know. This is a touchy issue. And obviously it is the subject today. It's our headline. It's our subject line. But before we get to that, honey, I
Yes.
want to do something I've never done before.
Wow, after 41 years. Ladies and gentlemen, she's never done this. Well, I'm sorry we don't have video.
Not
but
even with you.
Wow.
Okay.
Ooh.
I am going I'm going to share a letter I got this week that is not this week's letter writer questioner. It's a couple
This week's later writer questioner. That's
there's
quite
hyphens between each
okay,
one.
okay.
It's a couple weeks ago. We did the subject, how do I find balance?
Yeah, right.
Do you remember that
I
one?
do,
It
I
was
do.
popular. I expect it will continue to be popular because that is the number one issue for women across the board. I mean, even happy women, right? We talked all about that.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's not balance is not a negative thing, right? It's just dealing with all that's going on. Whether
yeah,
it's
exactly, which
could be
is
all
a
good
woman's
stuff,
world.
right.
Okay. So she wrote and said, "Oh, my heart skipped a beat, Ramona. You read my letter."
Oh, this is the letter writer.
Yes.
Oh, fun.
Yes. And she said, "I had tears come. Thanks so much for reading it and making it the topic of your podcast. I loved it." Whole bunch of exclamation points. "I will re-listen to this another time soon. I will refer back to it often. You know, I figured out why I'm feeling so overwhelmed."
From
All right.
listening to the
so
podcast.
we talked, yeah, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is because I never take care of me, only everyone else, and I am really tired.
Yeah. That was well done. Do that again. Really
Tired.
Yeah.
There you
Okay.
go. It's time to reclaim my me time, you know? Thanks so much for this podcast. From my heart to yours. Thank you very, 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 very much. Much love. So,
Wow.
does that make you feel good?
We have one satisfied customer.
one.
Yeah. High five. Okay. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
great.
glad she's so happy and she figured out the answer is right in front of her nose. But we had to do an hour podcast to get around to it.
Out of balance. Couldn't find it.
Now, listen, if you think that is the whole podcast and now you don't need to go listen, you are mistaken, because we have a ton of information in there and a ton of strategies. And that's the one that she picked up on, why she feels out of balance. And now she's going to employ all the other strategies and
Right,
tactics in the podcast. I just want to encourage everyone who hasn't listened to it,
Yeah.
to go listen.
Yeah, because there's going to maybe different reasons for you, and there's lots of strategies, like you say, that we went through.
All right. So back to today's topic. Are you ready for this?
Just try not to be too critical of me, but I'm...
I hear
okay.
the reason we pick up on the questions, the reason we choose the questions is because the questions that we do choose.
Okay. Should we choose to choose those questions?
Yes, apply to many women. They're common to women, right? And this is another one of those. Hello, Ramona. When I have tried my best and things are running smoothly in the household, I am still not measuring up in my husband's eyes. I know this because of what he says.
He tells her so. Okay.
The message I get from him is that I'm not measuring up and that he doesn't see anything, that's in all capitals, anything that I do. He never compliments me on how nice the house looks, etc., stuff like that. But when it's out of order a bit, he'll say I should tidy up, which of course, she puts in parentheses, I already know to do, and I haven't done it for a reason, usually a headache or backache or something like that. And then this is bolded. This has been since day one and on all levels.
Wow. Okay.
If there is a person to be able to sift through those words to find the true meaning in what he is trying to communicate, that's you. What do I do?
Well, no pressure.
No pressure.
Okay.
But here's her question. In the middle of it, in the heart of it, deep down, it's the same question I've been asked 100 million times. I feel unfairly criticized by my spouse, by my husband.
This is, you're saying, a common thread with all the women that you work with.
Well, not all the women.
Well, it's a common thread.
Yeah, among
through the women that you
all
work
the women
with.
I work with. Yes, okay. Yeah. So some women every woman will feel hurt by her husband's criticism at some time or another. But there are many who feel constantly hurt, right?
Yeah.
So I want to answer her questions, which sounds like it's pretty constant. She said from day one at all levels.
Yeah, right.
But I also want to touch on those of us who might feel occasionally criticized and talk about why that is and how to deal with it. I'm not going to say combat it because that's the wrong approach, right? Okay. And your perspective as a male species of the humankind.
Token male sitting here ready to go.
I think will be really interesting and helpful. So first of all, I'm going to ask you, why do you think it hurts women so much? Why does it hurt a wife so much if she feels criticized?
Yeah. I think one of the things that she said in here that I already know to do and haven't done it for a reason, right? So it's like the guy's thinking, oh, well, she missed this. No, she hasn't missed it. Okay. It's in there. It's just that she hasn't gotten to it for whatever reason. It's not that she's unaware.
That makes her feel sort of like a kid.
Yeah.
Like a parent pointing something out to a kid.
It's very much a hierarchical situation where the guy's like, okay, look, let me help you here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I need to point out that blah, 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 blah,
and
blah,
what
blah.
is wrong with that moral superiority?
Right.
It's disrespectful.
Exactly.
That is the definition of disrespect, to put yourself above someone else and talk down to them.
Yeah.
Like you're not equal, like they're not equal to you in some respect.
Now, it might be that in their relationship and their marriage that there's been some consistency created, some expectations on the part of the guy, right?
Okay,
Saying,
what do you mean?
Well, okay, I come home, everything's a certain way.
Okay.
Now, let's say it's all nice and tidy and everything's good.
He wants it that way or it is that way?
It's expected that way.
It's expected.
And perhaps there's been a time that's gone, a period of time that's gone by when that has been the case.
Oh, and then there's a new stage of life, a new factor in the family.
And
like
it's not as consistent
another human
as
being.
it could be.
A baby.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, that can change it.
Okay.
But here you have that she feels like this has gone on from day one.
Yes.
Right.
This sounds kind of like an ingrained pattern.
Yeah. And maybe he grew up this way, that it was always that way.
Right.
So the first thing, is the understanding that she understands. You don't have to point out every little thing. A certain way.
Right. So I think you hit it on the nose. That is why it hurts. You feel talked down to. And just from the woman's point of view, all right, there are many feminine fears that are peculiarly acute, let's say, in women, from all my experience. And one of those is feeling unimportant or less than. We're afraid of that, or we have an aversion to it. We could say it either way. And we also don't like feeling overwhelmed. Just like we talked about the balance, right?
Right.
And we're scared of being overused and underappreciated. So this
hits on all of those.
Yes.
Yeah.
It excites every one of those fears, right?
Right.
And all she really wants is validation from him. That's what she depends on her partner for.
That she's doing the best she can.
Yes, the idea,
on a given day,
the message
time.
that I support you, I believe in you, I've got your back. And that kind of criticism is exactly the opposite of that.
Right.
Another thing she really craves is a sense of teamwork. Instead of, that I've got your back idea, that I see our marriage as a full partnership and you as a full partner instead of you're not doing your part.
Right.
Kind of feeling. Or you're not doing good enough and you're you're half of the bargain.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then why don't you do my half of the bargain? It's on this particular day when I'm not feeling well, it's a partnership. And so that excites her feelings or her fears of being dominated or controlled. Or every woman in a family wrestles with the feeling like she's carrying her unfair share of the burden.
Right.
And when he criticizes her, it's just like he's just put another brick in her knapsack. So bad idea, guys. And she also has an aversion to or fear of feeling betrayed or abandoned or the fear of apathy or indifference.
You can see how that could be a precursor. This whole type of relationship can be a precursor to that.
Yes. She wants so badly to get the message from him that I will never leave you wanting. I will never leave you, right? I'm committed heart and soul to your happiness. And when he criticizes, and it obviously hurts her, she feels betrayed. She feels like he's done exactly the opposite of what she's banking on her partner or her spouse to do for her. So any form of criticism is the opposite of what she actually really needs. And it has the opposite impact in that she's less loving, less supportive, less everything that he needs. So we get into the crazy cycle, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of times where I'm guilty of this, where I was critical for something, and you think around the house or, should do it this way or why isn't it done now?
Yeah, but you know what? Your critiques, if you will, have been, I'm going to call unintended criticism, in that you really thought you were helping me.
Yeah, true.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Let's talk about the types
All right.
criticism.
So it's not just being critical. There you can break it down, which will help to understand how to deal with it.
That's the whole point.
Okay.
We want to understand where it's coming from. We want to be able to delineate, if you will, between these types of criticism, and then we'll know the best way to handle it.
Cool.
If we just take everything he says as one kind of criticism, like it's all an expression of disapproval and perceived faults and mistakes, if we take everything he says with that, point of view, that paradigm, it's just going to destroy our marriage. Right. If he's always nasty and insensitive and a brute, if you will.
A brute. A brute. You brute, you. Oh, sorry. Haven't heard that word in a while. Such a brute. Wasn't that a cologne that men used to wear? It was. Brute.
I don't know why, but the vision of Gaston came into
Yes, or Brutus from Popeye there or something.
Yeah. Don't date us. You did it again. You told everybody
You started
how old
it.
we are. Okay. So the first type of criticism is constructive criticism.
Oh,
which is,
of course. The most popular kind of criticism.
Let me clarify something about constructive criticism. If someone comes up to you, this is this is Ramona's book of life. If someone comes up to me and said, may I offer you some constructive criticism?
May I
I'm going to
offer?
say, no, you may not. Because constructive criticism is the kind that I seek out. You don't offer it.
Oh.
I seek it out because
Okay.
I want to grow. I want to learn. And so I might very well ask you, how could I do this better?
Honey, how can I vacuum the floor better? Is that what you're saying?
No, but I sometimes do ask you about, well, what would be the best way of cooking this piece of meat? Or I don't, how it didn't turn out right. Do you have any ideas about how it could be better?
But it's something that you feel that you need to or want to improve on.
Yes, exactly. Not what someone else thinks I
Right,
need to
exactly.
want to improve on.
That's right.
So that is different. That's
Okay.
the difference between someone coming up and saying, may I give you constructive criticism? Don't listen to that. That is plain old criticism.
And I've heard that from others, and certainly in corporate settings and having conversation, learning how to have conversations. That's kind of has been the whole thing of there is no such thing as constructive criticism. And I like your point in that if it's offered by someone, no. If I'm asking for help, I'm asking to construct myself to be better.
Construct myself.
Yeah.
That's so good. So here's the four characteristics, if you will, of constructive criticism. Number one, it's the one we just said. You've sought
You're
it out.
asking for it, right?
Number
Boy,
two,
you're asking for it.
all right, you're asking for it.
You asked for it.
Number two is it's a well thought out thing. It isn't someone just off the cuff saying, you didn't do that. It's like you've given them some time and they've had time to think it through.
So the
Like,
response is thoughtful.
well thought out
and
objective. Right?
Right. Not pointed at you did this and you didn't do that.
Yeah. And the person who's offering it didn't hit them really hard.
Not an emotional type
Exactly.
response.
So it's also delivered sans that emotion. No drama. The person who's saying, well, okay, this is how I see it. I think you could do that, blah, 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 blah. They're speaking well thought out, objective, and level-headed, if you will, instead of emotional. There's no drama in it. All right. So here's what you can do with constructive criticism.
You can shove it. Is what you
Now listen, you can. If she thinks that it's inaccurate, if she goes to her husband and says, like I do, what could I do better at this or that? He gives a well thought out,
unemotional response.
An unemotional response. If she thinks it's inaccurate, throw it out.
Well,
Out the window.
Throw it back in his face.
No, I mean she can ignore it.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Okay. Let's take it or leave it. That's what constructive criticism is all about.
Yeah,
so
because you're asking for it, you're responding, and then you take it and say, okay, how do I apply this or not apply it? Like most things.
Right. Again, sans the emotion.
Right.
So she can she can take it, learn from it, appreciate it, move on. That's her options. For constructive criticism. Now, here's the second type of criticism, and I call it unintended criticism. Meaning,
define that.
Well, some men offer what they might call constructive criticism, but remember, they offered it. It wasn't asked for.
Right.
That's unintended criticism. And they really believe that they're teaching you something.
Right.
In my experience working with hundreds, thousands of women, I hear this a lot. Their husbands really believe that they're teaching them, helping them. Men love to teach. And let me explain how you could do this better. And if you organize this drawer a little differently, or if you handled this problem with your friend a little differently, things would be so much better. Now I have helped you. Again, it comes across to her as very condescending.
And I'm telling you, I'm really guilty of that. Have been quite guilty of that.
I wasn't going to say that.
Well, but since you brought it up, no, it's true. You have defined my thought pattern.
Really?
Yeah, that it's like, okay, let me help you here. And it's not.
Yeah.
I don't approach it from a condescending.
Exactly.
That's I'm so much better. Let me show you how to do it. It's
that's
just
why
that
it's unintended.
Here's an idea. Here's a way to, and it'll help you. It'll make it easier. It'll last. Quicken it up or speed it up. Or
well, let me give you a little constructive criticism on your constructive criticism.
Did I ask for some here? I don't recall asking for.
That is also unintended, but it's all in the phrasing. Mm-mm. It's all in the timing.
Yeah, timing is everything. That's for sure.
It's all in the tone. And it depends on where she's at. If she's especially sensitive to it because of the time of day or the time of month.
Right, yeah. Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Or because who knows why. And if he can't read her and think, oh, I probably should not do this right now. It's going to be received by her as criticism. So with unintended criticism, if she thinks it's inaccurate, rather than lash back, which is the temptation,
right,
or to think the worst
response
of him, like he's so insensitive, blah, 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 she can, consider and try out a more accepting approach. Just let it get off. Just fly off her back. And honestly, that's what I try and do. At least as I've gotten smarter. I probably didn't do this very well in the early years, but as I've gotten smarter, I try to just say, oh, thank you, and assume that you're telling me to put more salt in the water, and you're laughing because how many times have you told me to do that? Put more salt in the water, that you really are trying to help me. You're just trying to show me how to make better pasta. And I say that to myself, and then I say, well, thank you. Even though I think you could have phrased it a little differently so it didn't sound so critical.
Well, and what I've learned is to not do that and then just come by when you're not there and add a lot of salt to the water. So that, solves the problem.
Oh, no. I am never leaving my water unintended again, now that I know what's really going on. The other thing she can do is to help him be a little more considerate in his approach by unemotionally teaching him what she really needs.
And I think that could very much apply to our writer here, is how to express
except
this.
I think this guy might be more intentional in
it
his
sounds
criticism.
like quite possibly.
Yeah, but for a lot of women, this really does apply. And so in that case, I would say, I know you mean to be helpful when you come around criticizing my boiling water. I know you mean to be helpful, and I appreciate that. But right now, it's not the best time for me. So you're letting him know, you're helping him save face a little bit by saying, I know you're really trying to help, and I appreciate that. But now, and so you're teaching him, this is not what I need right now. He's not going to really know what you need otherwise.
Right.
Or you go back later and you can say, you probably couldn't see it, but when you said that in front of the company we had, it really hurt my feelings. Well, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation.
Just leave it.
Listen, this is really important.
Okay.
If it's just a little smarty, it's just a little criticism that just hurts just in the moment, but you want him to know that so he doesn't do it again. You just tell him about that time, and that's the end. You don't expect a big apology and a big discussion of why he said it and what he did. It's just, if it's just an owie, a little smarty, that's all it needs. He's going to feel bad enough. It's over.
But one thing that you said I think is really critical, and that's how you started, where you said you probably didn't notice this. You couldn't see that this was, however you say it.
Yes.
Rather than just coming in and go, you really busted my chops, or you just blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
That just really puts the conversation in a different light and the individuals at much more ease.
This goes back to last week's podcast when we said a person who feels defensive stops listening.
Yeah, right. And if you don't, by doing that, you break that defensiveness down that might be there.
You don't even get them a chance.
Yeah.
They have no chance to put up a defense before you tell them what the deal is.
It's a huge strategy.
You
number
like
one
that
tip
one.
there.
You
Yes.
really, really like that one.
I've
been teaching that for years. I'm so glad that you approve. Yeah. You probably couldn't see it, bud.
Top tip, ladies, right there.
From the guy's point of view.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's your brain starts going back and going, no, yeah, gee, you're replaying what happened, hopefully.
I've done that a few times in our marriage when I felt like you were making fun of me or something in front of people, or you made a joke at my expense or something, and I'll tell you later.
I learned that.
But how did you learn it? Because I told you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you told me in that manner,
right? Not
being creating some conflict there,
right?
So,
right. And to be fair, last week's podcast was about negative. How she can come across as very negative and hurtful to him. And we talked about how to rephrase and everything. So that's all we're doing today. But we're coming, instead of her negativity to him, we're talking about his negativity towards her. So I just want to make it clear it's always a two-way street. Okay. Now, so far we've talked about two kinds of criticism.
Let me see if I can remember.
Okay. It's a test, only a test.
No. Constructive.
Yes.
Right.
And what is constructive?
Constructive is when you ask for it, not when it's just unabashedly offered.
Okay, because you want to improve.
You want to improve. And then unintended criticism.
Okay, right. Which is when doesn't really mean to hurt you.
No.
Or control you or whatever.
I'm doing this with love.
Yes. He thinks he is.
Yeah. Well, his intentions are there. But it's about what you're trying to say here. It's about how you approach these things.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, here's the third type. And this is the problem type. And I think it is the one that applies to this specific letter writer. And I call it projected criticism. Do you have any idea what that might mean?
Projected. So it has to be an assumption, a negative type.
When we project on someone, what are we doing?
Oh, well, we're taking what ourselves, how we feel, or our experience onto them.
So projected criticism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And there's examples of that in the news every day.
Yeah, that's right. Let's turn on a press briefing.
So projected criticism is an emotional, negative reaction to something that you, the wife, has said or done. All right. So we're talking about our husband,
in this case, hasn't
projecting
done,
criticism. Maybe. Yeah, hasn't done. Exactly. So if your husband is ranting about how irresponsible you are in some way, it's because you did something that emotionally threatened them.
So what could have happened here then?
I don't know. I don't have a specific
No, I understand that.
situation here exactly from this in this question. But he is feeling envy, insecurity, anger. Something triggered those negative feelings in him, and he's projecting them on her through criticism. We're going to break now for just a minute so I can invite you to my free live masterclass, Understanding Your Husband and Sons. In my work with women in over 70 countries, I found that most of us, when it comes to our husbands and sons, think like Carol in Kenya.
I was expecting him to think like me, behave like me.
Or Dana in Utah.
Shouldn't we just be the same? And shouldn't we just agree?
Or Anne in California.
I grew up in a culture where there was a lot of eye rolling and sighing about guys.
And that's too bad, because when we act or react based on false expectations, we end up feeling like Catherine.
I didn't feel I could relate to him. because I didn't understand him.
Or getting riled up like Carol.
Made me mad. It's crazy. It was frustrating, you know?
And acting like Anne.
I used to think he should know what I wanted without me having to ask.
Which just erodes our relationships and blows up our dreams. So that's why I created Understanding Your Husband and Sons, a super fun, eye-popping deep dive into his brain, body, and emotional makeup. Women have been coming from all over the world and coming away from our time together with an exhilarating sense of hope and power, because now women like Amber, Ann, Dana, and Allison understand
how to communicate my needs, how to be clear about it, how not to be run around, how not to manipulate.
The way I communicate with him isn't any more aggressive or threatening to him.
I can see why he's reacting or why he's responding that way.
That's helped to avoid a lot of the hurt feelings that I used to have.
So if, like Jeannie in Canada, you're thinking,
okay, I need to reboot how I think about marriage and men and how they're loved,
please join me at this free live masterclass, Understanding Your Husband and Sons. I'll teach you things you have never heard before and that you won't hear anywhere else. Science and strategies that will knock your socks off and make all the difference in your relationships.
And it just changes everything about how I see him.
There's this huge potential that I was not really tapping into because I didn't fully understand it.
We're both so much happier now.
And in how you see yourself.
My confidence as a woman has skyrocketed.
We've made it so easy. Just go to wifesavers.org/masterclass and choose a day and time. I'll meet you there and even answer your questions live. Because like Carol in Kenya or Cindy in Argentina, you'll want to be able to say,
oh, we're wired differently. And that's the beauty of life.
And it set me free. It allowed me to say, okay, I understand now. And I loved him more than ever.
wifesavers.org/masterclass. Even inside projected criticism, there's two more types. There's two types of projected criticism. Thank you. Subtypes.
Sub-projected criticism number one
is if it's from stress or worries outside their relationship, in that it's occasional and out of character. Right? So sometimes just things build up and he just lets
I'm not
loose
myself and
on you,
blah.
and you can say, oh, he just wasn't himself. I wish we could say it was his time of the month, because that would explain.
Well, guys have those times usually once a week, actually.
But for a woman, you're not yourself.
Right.
But guys have those.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of things that can bring that to a head.
Right. So if it is from stresses or worries or anxieties outside of the relationship, and it's out of character, he doesn't normally let it loose like that, then we can see that criticism. He's criticizing you. We can see the criticism as a concern for him. We can say, wow, something must really be going on in there. Even though it was directed at you, you're realizing it was projected, that it really doesn't have anything to do with you. And so now, if you really know that it's out of character, we can turn around and say, wow, what is eating him?
So that's a real higher level response.
Very high level.
To say,
to react non-defensively like that and be concerned for his well-being and treating him with care. And often it's just a soft response that, honey, wow.
Yeah, I can see how this, you take it on the flip side where, and we talked about it in our last podcast, where, what's wrong? Nothing.
The male mask.
Right. The mask that goes on is an indication that, something is going on.
Yes, that he's processing those emotions.
And here, the same type of thing, except it's more overt.
Yes.
Where aggressive, maybe.
And like the let's fight mask.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Right. Good point. Really good.
Yeah. So we react more out of concern from him than take the criticism personally.
Right.
I'm so glad you tied that in with that other podcast. That's so good. So that's one thing we can do, is try hard not to respond defensively, but out of concern. And we might also let him know that, wait a minute, that hurt. Just like we did before when we say,
yeah, you may not have realized
something's going
this,
on.
but
You may not have realized it, but when you were stressed the other day, you said this and it hurt. It really hurt. And that's the end. Remember, that's the end. You don't go, so apologize. Come on, fess up.
But in this case, it could be the catalyst for him to speak up and talk about things and improve the situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're just teaching him. You leave him alone. Let him save face that way. And we forgive. If it's occasional.
Yeah, move on.
Listen, there'd be no marriages without forgiveness.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
There would never, look at us. What? 40 plus years. And forgiveness is a constant. It's not an event. It's an attitude.
Yeah.
Just runs through everything. So if it's really occasional, if it's really out of character when he criticizes you, ladies, let it roll. You can tell him, like we've talked about, but be a little worried for him and let it go. All right. Now, that's if it is out of character. If, however, it's very much his character in that it's chronic, it's toxic, then it has to be projected criticism that's chronic or toxic, has to be the result of his own emotions, envy, insecurity, anger, right? So that is downright mistreatment. And that's what the letter writer's complaining about. And
chronic.
She said it's been that way at all levels from day one, right? So here's some suggestions for managing the conflict that's caused by that kind of mistreatment. Ready for it? Number one.
This would be projected criticism 1.1.
Yes, and I'm getting my muscles
yes,
up.
She is.
Here we go, ladies. All right. Taking my Popeye spinach. If he's disrespectful, don't be afraid to call him on it.
It's how you do it, though, right?
If he is
straightforward,
disrespectful, do not be afraid to call him on it. Now, this is different, remember. I'm not talking about the unintended criticism when he thinks he's being helpful and you see it as sort of condescending. No, I gave you a whole different strategy for that. This isn't the projected kind of criticism that's occasional. I gave you a whole different set of strategies for that. This is for the chronic criticizer who comes across as almost hateful.
I've been gone all day working my butt off. I come home. What have you been doing today? I can't. The pile of dishes over here and the blah 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 blah.
Yes, like our letter writer said,
you've
she
been
feels
sitting
like
around
she
watching
can do
TV.
Nothing right. That he doesn't appreciate anything she actually has done.
And this comes from seeing the things that aren't done as opposed to the things that
but why does he see that?
Why
he's
focused on
projecting.
that?
He's projecting.
Exactly.
He's looking for it because of something inside him. It really has very little to do with her. If it's a chronic, toxic form of criticism,
the way he was raised, or the environment he came out of,
he doesn't feel worthy himself. He feels like he doesn't have a place in the world. So when he comes home,
if it's
remember the male mask.
If it's not all perfect, there's insecurities of somehow. Things aren't right.
But if he can't, if he feels like he's constantly humiliated by the world, he can come home and in this weird psychological thing that's going on inside of him, it's in his psyche. He's creating his own dominion, at least under control,
I can control this.
Of this world,
right?
And I'm going to have order. It's Mr. Banks and Mary Poppins,
That's right.
He comes home singing his song about how perfect and orderly and in control he is. And she's like, we just lost the nanny, honey.
That's right.
Yeah. And when he finds out his world isn't so perfect, it disturbs
really
something
hard.
on a really deep level for him. So in that situation, I say call him on it. So I'm talking really now to the disappearing woman.
The disappearing woman, the one that shrinks and is lorded over.
Yes. After years maybe of that kind of criticism, she starts to disappear.
Yeah.
Disappear. Just less and less of a person. So to her, I say, value and voice your own opinions, your beliefs, what you know. Speak up for what you need. Call him on his attitudes and behaviors. State your grievances and stand by what you say or what you have said. Right? Because chronic criticism is the worst kind of disrespect.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so, if coming from a spouse
yeah,
who's supposed to be your partner, I'm afraid, and you tell me, is this true? That there are men, and too many maybe, who feel they have a right to criticize a woman or their wife.
Yeah, there definitely is. And part of it is in the sense of, I'm providing, I'm paying for all this stuff. This is my house.
Wait a minute.
Type thing.
Is it that? But what if they're, both working? And
No,
both contributing?
I get that. I'm just saying, not saying that that's the always the case, but there is a provincial type attitude of, I'm taking care of, this is my house. I paid for it.
Ooh,
therefore,
ouch. This
it will
is too
be
ugly
done
for me to even hear.
This way.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
And that's where it starts,
So
I think.
he feels like he has a right to exercise dominion. He thinks of himself as her superior. But you know what? In those cases, that criticism is just a way to hide his own insecurities. And if she lets him do it, she's agreeing to an unequal relationship. She's agreeing to be the child. She's agreeing to be the student. She's agreeing to be the, I don't know.
The hired help.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Ouch. Right. So that's why, she has to stand up.
But you're not advocating. I'm totally with you on this, but you're not advocating this argumentative, get into this, and you say state, value.
I'm going to tell you how
voice.
to do it right now.
Excellent.
Ready? Okay.
Let's do it.
I always tell you exactly what to
That's
say.
That's right. Just see these brains out there. These women are going, okay, let's see. Oh, I don't think I'm going to try that. I'm not going to say that
Let's
way.
go point for point. You ready?
Ready.
He's making fun of you. Some men use humor, and you've done this sometimes, but
I'm
it
very
was
guilty of this.
unintended. It was not a chronic
It's a cheap
form of
joke,
this.
cheap way to get a laugh.
So some men use humor as a way of subtly putting you down.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a habit if you
Yes,
let them
it
do
does.
it.
Yeah, it does.
And isn't it common between men to sort of tease each other that way?
To
establish hierarchy by rubbing,
very much so.
each other.
Very, very much so. Yeah. Yep. And it's a common thing. It starts when you're a little kid.
Really?
Where you're, especially little boys, where they tend to establish their authority or their dominance by putting somebody down. It's a real simple way to become, in your mind, dominant.
King of the
mountain. It's a very simple way. And so it happens as kids, but it often carries into adulthood.
And it completely inappropriate in a
marriage.
Yes. Husband-wife relationship. So it's just sort of a passive way of creating that hierarchy even inside your own marriage. Oh, a passive-aggressive way is what I meant to say. All right. So it's a way for him to communicate hostility. And it's hurtful to women. It's terribly hurtful to women. So here's what I think she should do. The to-do for him making fun of you is look him directly in the eye and tell him that it hurt and why.
Right then when he makes fun of you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, even if it's in a social setting.
Oh, man.
Because it often happens. It's when it's going to happen is when we're standing in a group. Maybe it's a four, maybe it's two couples.
That's really tough.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm trying to think if for me, I might. I very well might if it were me and it were you. But I'm not sure some women, especially if she's fighting the despairing woman syndrome, would have the confidence to do that. But at some point, you remember earlier on we said you probably couldn't see it.
Right.
But in this case, if this is a chronic pattern and we're going to break the pattern, I would say, I'm serious about this. that comment hurt my feelings. Please don't say that kind of thing to me again.
Yeah.
See, did you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it one more time. I'm serious about this. That comment hurt my feelings. Please do not say that kind of thing to me again.
And you leave it.
And I leave it.
Yeah.
I don't expect an apology. I don't expect a fight. I don't want one. I don't even want a discussion about it. I'm just telling you straight out so that you are better informed. That's not acceptable. Right?
Yeah. So when and how, I mean, you've given a good how. When is something
she's
going
to
to have to work out.
It. Yeah, I think you're right. And close to the humor idea of making fun of you is sarcasm.
Yeah, real common.
Sarcastic remarks. That is also passive aggressive. And he's just... he's really just saying what he's feeling inside.
Yeah.
Without coming out and saying it directly.
Yeah,
so he's
true.
like, I'm just joking with you. But he's
Right.
really saying, I'm mad at you. I'm uncomfortable with you. I don't like this about you. But it's coming out as a joke, but it's really sarcastic. So the to-do for that is to follow the exact same thing that we just said earlier. I'm serious about this. That comment hurt my feelings. Please don't ever say that kind of thing about, to me again.
Or about us. I think you
Or
were
about
kind of
us.
starting to say there.
Yeah.
It might be something about the relationship that comes out.
Yes.
Not necessarily being
Yes.
critical
Yes.
of a specific thing,
Yes.
but it's being critical of the relationship
Yes.
in front of others.
She might even have to defend the children from his
Yeah,
sarcasm.
that's true.
Where she could say that same thing. I'm serious about this. That comment hurt Joey's feelings. Please do not say that kind of thing to him again.
Yeah, right.
All right. So we're talking about an extraordinary marriage that's the most of the marriages I work with do not have this degree of the toxic kind of communication going on. But too many have a degree of it.
And unless you can address it like this and get things moving in the right direction, it can become quite toxic.
Yes, if she's responding inappropriately, including letting him get away with it.
Right, or
Get
not
away with
responding
it.
at all.
Right. So here's another one, when he's condescension. And I think this happens commonly when men are raised around other men who have attitudes towards women. So they grow up feeling superior to women.
Sure.
They've been taught it.
Right.
Basically, generationally, to feel superior to women, right? So to this I say, well, I'm not going to swear.
That's too bad. I really was looking forward to putting in a beep or something in there. Go ahead. I'll put the beep in. That'll be a first. That'll be the title of the podcast, actually.
Don't tell
Ramona
me Sunday school
swears.
class.
Yeah. Go about 32 minutes in and Ramona swears.
Well, this is one place where it's really appropriate. But the idea is never, ever allow this. For him to feel superior in some way or to treat you as inferior.
Feeling superior by treating you inferior.
Yes.
Inferiorly.
Yes. Right.
Inferiorly?
Right,
Did I make up a word?
So here's what you say.
Inferiorly? Just want to make sure. Okay.
We make up new words
We
on
do.
this podcast.
That's right. We got a whole dictionary now.
What is she going to say when he's condescending? You ready? Do you realize how condescending that remark was?
Again, bringing it back to the moment.
But here again, she's looking him straight in the eye,
Right,
directly in the eye. Do you realize how condescending that remark was? It's really important to look him in the eye. I talk a lot about communication shoulder to shoulder with men. And this is when we're becoming friends, companions, intimates, and how valuable that is. But in this situation, you got to look him in the eye as an equal and say, do you realize how condescending that remark was?
Face to face.
Another one, and he could go,
yeah, right.
I'm going to tell you what to
soften
expect.
up.
We'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah. Don't worry, we're going to get to that.
Put some pants on.
Or she might say, I'm sure you don't really feel that you're superior to me, but that comment kind of makes it sound like you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you don't really feel superior.
What I like about that is the comment becomes the issue, not the person.
Yes.
You're not making the guy the problem.
Yes.
You're making the comment.
The comment
the
is
guilty
the
party,
issue
basically.
instead of you
Yes,
are so mean,
right.
or you are so insensitive,
Right.
or you are so
You
crude,
stupid
or you
idiot.
are such a brute.
Yeah, you. We got brute back in. Are you beep? There. You're never going to live that one down.
I know it. I can feel it. But you get it. I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
The comment is the issue, not him.
Right.
In how she confronts him. So, this is good. All right, here's a good one and a common one. Interrupting. When
Yes.
some women can hardly get a word in edgewise, and I know it's true the other way around.
Yeah.
But a lot of men can't get in a word edgewise.
Yeah. Like I was trying to say, right?
But if,
I'm trying. Okay.
I'm not starting until you're done. Are you done?
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
If he's constantly interrupting you, I think that I know men. I have some men in my acquaintance.
I know men.
That think of conversation, like every conversation, as some kind of debate or battle that they're going to best you in.
Yeah,
right.
okay.
That they're going to defeat you at any cost. I remember some conversations with certain male friends that I will not
Go
name.
ahead, say their name.
They could,
Beep.
that went on for hours because everything I said, he was playing devil's advocate or whatever and coming back. And like it was a debate of wits. And I'm like, hello? This is not fun anymore. It was fun for a few minutes, not fun anymore. So in that case, he may be interrupting you. He may be raising his voice to drown you out or discredit you in any way he can. So what to do? If he begins to argue with you before you have a chance to even, get your ideas across, this is what you say. I really like to debate with you. I would really like to debate with you on this. It's exciting. This is what I wish I had known and said during those conversations with the friend.
Okay.
Let me see. I got to get this straight. And ladies, go ahead. Practice in front of the mirror. It's good. I would really like to debate with you on this. It's exciting, but it would be so much more fun if you would stop interrupting me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Show that you're engaged. You want to be part of this thing, but yeah. Okay.
Be a lot more fun if you'd stop interrupting me. So here we are. We're standing up and we're calling him on it. See? So when I said earlier, state your voice, state your opinion, stand up, this is all I'm talking about. It's not so hard. You just have to have the right words. If he continues arguing with you, you stop talking again. You look him directly in the eye, just like we've done all along, and say, listen, I listened to you without interrupting until you were finished telling me your point of view. Now I expect you to listen to my point of view without interrupting me. So before she said, it would be a lot more fun if, and then he keeps going. So now she's saying, I expect you to listen to my point of view the same way I listen to your point of view. And if he still goes on, because an arguer or debater are the hardest ones to wrangle, I would say, you know what? It seems like it's a lot more important to you to be right. And all I wanted to do was to have a lively discussion. So let's talk another time when you're in the mood to listen.
There you go. So, okay. How do you apply this to the marriage?
Well, it's true.
Just really marriage. Just that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we started out with, I'd really like to debate with you. It's exciting, but it would be a lot more fun if you'd stop interrupting me. And then if it continues, I listened without interrupting till you were finished with your point of view. And now I expect you to listen to my point of view. And now it's still going on. So we say, you know what? It seems that you are far more concerned about being right. And I just wanted to have a lively discussion. So let's talk another time when you're in the mood to listen. So
take that to our question.
Okay.
All right. So blah, blah, blah. This isn't right. You know, this barrage seems like that can come out.
Right.
Things
Anything
aren't
that's
correct.
Right.
So apply this now to say the same type of thing. I'd like to talk to you about this, but you're not ready to listen, or
we'll bring
see what I'm saying?
Bring it up again when you are ready.
Yeah. You can see that could be.
You just said you're not ready to listen.
Yeah. Okay.
Which gave me.
Yeah.
Made me feel defensive.
Right.
Like, how do you know how I feel?
I'm not the expert here. Okay. So thank you for constructively criticizing me on how I said that. But but you see what I'm saying? That in this situation, that could be a really good tactic to break this.
Right. You know what? We just need another whole podcast on managing natural conflict in marriage.
Yeah.
We call it, in WifeSavers, we call it drop and cover, and I'll explain why later. It's not duck and cover. It's drop and cover, which has a very specific meaning where you drop back and think something through before you come back. So this is what you're talking about when you say, let's come back later.
Right.
We're going to drop back for a while.
Yeah.
When you're in the mood to listen. Yeah.
I think it could be a good tactic for a letter writer.
I like
to develop that.
So you started to respond the way you thought he might react. You said a couple of things. I don't remember what they were, but they were all, something like that. I'm going to say this. Do not accept the following excuses.
Okay.
If he says, you're being unreasonable, a lot of guys will say something along
settle
those
down.
lines. Oh, come on, you're overreacting, kind of thing. It is perfectly reasonable to want to be listened to, or not to be criticized, or not to be made fun of, or be treated condescendingly. It is unreasonable for him to expect to treat you in any of those ways without repercussions.
Okay, if you're going to go there, guys, get ready.
Don't tell her it's unreasonable.
Yeah.
You're the one who's being unreasonable to think there are not repercussions to treating her in that way. Don't.
Yeah, because if a guy's getting away with it over time, becomes a habit.
Yes, she's allowing it to happen.
She's disappearing.
Right, she's disappearing. She's shrinking. This is her time to... honey, I blew up the kids, and she's going to get big. He's going to get big. No more little. He might also use the excuse of, you're being hysterical.
Yeah, right.
Right? Can you say it in the male tone of voice? It sounds stupid when I say it.
Oh, you're being hysterical. Come on. Jeez.
That is so demeaning. So demeaning.
Yeah.
Because it's telling her she doesn't have a right to her feelings. That's how women will hear it. That's how they're going to hear it. Like, you don't have a right to your feelings, what he calls hysterical. And remember, we talked about how men process emotion in a previous podcast.
Right.
And so her big emotion and her drama, her angst, makes him extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, very much
And in an effort to squelch it, he may very well say, you're being hysterical.
Yeah, and it's not effective, guys, to say, oh, you don't feel that way.
You found that one out.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking from experience, feeling is a very subjective thing, and you can't say, don't feel that way, or you can't feel that way.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a really
you
bad
have to
move.
Acknowledge that the feelings exist.
Her feelings are real. She has a right to him.
Right.
She needs to be validated.
Right.
Remember, we talked in the very beginning. She needs to feel validated. And once she does, all that drama and angst, everything goes whoosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Once that's a great beginning to making progress.
You do that for me. It's so beautiful. You've been doing it for the past week over and over and over again.
Finally figured it out. Took me 40 plus years, but the last week's been good.
Here's another excuse he might throw out there. You're trying to start trouble. What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Just start trouble? What are you getting so worked up about? And in that case, what you're really trying to do is avoid trouble by telling him, by standing up to him. Now, see, these are the responses you're going to get if you stand up to him. You're going to get, you're being hysterical, you're being unreasonable, you're just trying to start trouble. And that you're just trying to start trouble is just making you feel defensive. He's trying to throw you off track.
Yeah.
So I am just...
You're the problem here.
Articulating them here now as a forewarning. So she's prepared. When he says, you're being unreasonable, she's going to think, oh, Ramona said he'd say that.
That's right.
No, you're not getting away with that. I'm not going to respond the way you think I'm going to respond because Ramona told me you'd say that. Or you're being hysterical, trying to start trouble, all that, whatever form they come in. So just a few more things. This is a big topic.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to it, no question.
Now we're prepared. We know what we're going to say. We might even practice in front of the mirror. I hope you're taking notes. Little sticky notes, But here's the behaviors you as a woman, not you, honey, but
not me. Okay.
The women.
She's not looking at me right now.
The women I'm talking to. Here's the behaviors to avoid. This will not help your cause. Don't whine or whimper. He hates whimpering.
Yeah, boy.
He
whining.
Hates
whining
whimpering
zone.
as much as you hate his arrogance. And really that whimpering just makes him more arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
So you both just end up hating each other more. You whimper all the more. He gets more arrogant. And,
yeah. More disappearing. The
Some
whimpering
zero.
is a great way to disappear.
Right. All right. Don't allow things to build up.
Yeah.
A lot of this confrontation is going to happen because you've been letting him get away with it for a long time. So we're not going to put up with that kind of behavior, so that we get to this point where we just can't take it anymore. And then it all comes out in a big tirade. We can't do it in the measured way Ramona's taught you because there's just too much behind the dam.
And even though there might be a situation where there is a whole bunch built up, what I hear you saying is to fix this, you can't just let it all out.
Right. If you get
for years, you've been blah, 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 blah. It's a measured way to change the ship direction.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It's a tact. It's a new tact.
Yeah.
I love the ship analogy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Thank you.
So instead of doing this big 180-degree turn, we're just going to start putting our foot down over and over so the ship just starts turning very slowly. Because you know what? Excuse me. I'm getting all excited. Choked up. If you respond in the tirade, you're giving him, I can't say this, you're giving him an excuse to call you hysterical.
That's it. Come right back.
To call you unreasonable.
Come right back. That's it.
Don't do that. Don't expect him to admit he was wrong or to apologize. We're going to do a podcast on this coming up because I've gotten a couple of questions along these lines. We're not going to expect him to admit he was wrong or apologize. If you demand that, guess what? He'll just get more defensive, right? Because it becomes a matter of masculine pride, even if you've proven he's wrong. So the other thing about it is it sends the message that he has control over your happiness. Like, until you say you're sorry, I can't be at peace. Until you say you're sorry, I can't be happy. And it's not going to happen.
But it goes back to what you were saying, too, in a couple of examples where you state, unemotionally, whatever it is, you state it and then you
walk away.
You stop.
It's
right.
over.
It's over.
Right.
And so what that also does is it takes the control away from him of that situation too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I want to clarify something here. We've set ourselves up. We have to do another podcast on managing natural conflict because it's another whole skill set to take something that is a real issue in your marriage or any kind of disagreement or argument. They happen in the best of marriages, right?
Daily in some situations.
Know how to deal with it. Know how to work through it to a resolution. That's really important. I am not saying you just never finish these things.
Right.
By walking
away.
No.
That's a good point.
Right. So that's another whole skill set. What I'm talking about now is criticism.
Right.
All right. We're just managing those critical remarks that come out either
on purpose or unintended.
Intentionally, and how to manage, how to handle those. That's the question. It's not about how do we work our way through this major issue or this argument. Okay, I just want to be really, really clear about that.
Okay, good.
So here's another one. Don't say you were wrong, just keep the peace. That's the disappearing woman.
And I think that happens for a lot of relationships. And I know I've been guilty of that. Okay.
Really?
So yeah, definitely.
Where you said, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Just keep, you mean you really weren't, you really didn't think you were wrong when you told me all those times? Well, I was wrong.
Yeah, full disclosure here. Full disclosure. No, it's true. There are times where I think it's not just the disappearing woman thing, but that, just to end stop the madness, to say that type of thing.
I believe in requesting forgiveness. I believe in accepting responsibility for what you've done to hurt someone.
Right.
Now you set us up again. We have to do another whole podcast just on forgiveness.
I think we should, definitely.
And I mean requesting forgiveness and
work
extending forgiveness, right? What I'm talking about here is appeasing an abuser.
Yes.
That's very, very different.
Right.
That's
enabling.
Really
that's
unhealthy.
Enabling an abuser.
Right. Right. And it will backfire on the abusee if they keep doing it. It will cause her to doubt her own perceptions. You start to believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
And here's the weird thing. It causes him to lose respect for you. The very thing that you need to reestablish equality and balance in this relationship. By saying, oh, you're right, I'm always wrong. That is a disappearing woman and a sign of an abusive relationship. We're getting to that in a minute. Don't scream or yell.
Yeah, I think we've established that.
It's understandable that you want to, right?
Totally.
But it will only deteriorate the situation or escalate the situation and gives him an excuse to call you crazy woman.
To go back
You're always
at
hysterical.
It. Right.
You don't give him that excuse. So we really try not to scream or yell. So, I mentioned abuse. I better touch on that now rather than do a whole podcast on it. But there's 3 kinds of abuse. And I am amazed at how many women come to me and that I work with one-on-one who have no idea they're in an abusive situation.
They don't see it.
So there's verbal abuse, and that's when he's calling you derogatory names or telling you ugly things about you. That's verbal abuse. Emotional abuse is when he's trying to make you think you are crazy, and he's threatening to end the relationship if you don't do what he says, or he's threatening to hit you. That's emotional abuse, where you are scared out of your wits. But it's all emotional. He hasn't touched you yet. So of course there's also physical abuse. It's amazing how many women don't even know what physical abuse is. You'd think that would be obvious. Listen to this. Hitting, punching, pushing, tripping, dragging, breaking things, putting his fist through things, throwing things, any tactic of intimidation, even if he doesn't physically touch you.
Yeah, so that's the thing that jumps out at me. It's not, we think of physical abuse as being physically touched. And what you're saying, there are forms of physical abuse
where he's using his physicality.
That's the way to look at it.
Intimidate
Thank you. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So we cannot tolerate that. We have to call it what it is, and it is abuse. Right? So that is something that you definitely need help and intervention and professional help. And there's a million resources for that out there. Those wonderful resources, domestic hotlines and so forth, abuse. So all I'm going to say about it, though, is don't tolerate it. Call it what it is, abuse. And don't go changing to try to please him. Who did that? I changed the words.
She's dating herself again. No. Just the way you are.
Was that Billy Joel?
Yes.
Lots of people don't know you used to be a DJ. You can rattle these things
probably
off.
A good thing.
These years and these. That was back in our early days when we were looking for your quest.
That's it.
All right. So, but that's true. Don't go changing to try to please him. So, wrap it up here. I want all listeners to listen.
Attention, all listeners. Attention, all listeners. Time to listen.
When you're sorting through all this, like, well, what kind of criticism am I dealing with? You're going to probably have to listen to this podcast several times over. But just remember, that he's probably unaware of his own emotional state. We've talked about that in previous podcast episodes. Go back, listen to that. Remember too, he's not linguistically based as you are as a woman. Most men are not as able to effectively communicate emotions as you are.
And that will bring out the anger, the emotion, the physicality often.
Yes, because he's compelled to release emotions physically or to rid himself of them as quickly as possible. And sometimes that'll come out in a burst.
Right.
Of something that's scary, right? You don't try to pull emotion out of him or to excite emotion in him. That's unwise. And most men, let's say 99.9%, will go defensive when you call them on their behavior. So be ready. He will go defensive. Remember too that how performance-driven he is. We've talked about this in previous episodes about believing in him, and those much more positive episodes than this one. But he's performance-driven, and his fears make him especially delicate. So temper your comments with loving care, especially when he's unintentionally critical, right? And give him lots of acknowledgement for the positive things that he does, for any attempts he makes to change the way he's trying to treat
so
you.
it may be, as we said, a chronic situation.
Yes.
Acknowledge the little things that may start helping to turn that ship.
Yes,
really
when you notice
important.
that he bit his tongue, or when he didn't flare up quite so easily, you can say, honey, I noticed that tonight you didn't react so angrily when the kids did this or something. I appreciate that. It really meant a lot to me.
Or you weren't so critical of.
Yes,
whatever.
that meant a lot to me.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to acknowledge his efforts because he really does, unless this relationship has deteriorated to the breaking point, he really does want to please her. He really, So this is important to think the best of him as much as possible, unless it's one of those really abusive situations. Then we're going to give you a completely different point of view and paradigm to get out and get help. So anyway, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I think this is it's interesting. The conversation has gone a little different than I anticipated that it would a little bit. And it's, as you said a little while ago, we have other podcasts that are much more light, shall we say, and a little happy. This is a hard topic for a lot of people, but it's also in varying degrees. I think every relationship can utilize these tactics and these strategies, but some certainly are worse than others.
Yes,
but
exactly.
It exists.
We're talking about a big spectrum here, and so that's hard to pinpoint down in a few minutes' time. Right. But listen, if anyone who will work with me over a long period of time in my WifeSaver's education membership, for instance, when they'll come really work with me and we'll learn all the WifeSaver principles step by step, point by point, in a really systematic style. So we're building principle upon principle, strategy on strategy, tactic on tactic. Their marriages are revolutionized. We have taken so many marriages that are on the absolute brink of disaster, where he's about to file for divorce or she's considering divorce, and she starts working with me. And within a few months, even, we have completely turned that ship around by using much more than what we've talked about here, where we're actually approaching the relationship from a very positive point of view.
And holistic point of view.
But sometimes and this is why women cry out to me out of the blue, help me, I just feel constantly criticized. I think these tactics can be very effective in stopping that. But if we want to now become his intimate and to become true best friends and develop a very powerful partnership, that's going to take a lot more and a lot of varied principles that are all encompassed in the WifeSaver's education.
Yeah.
So
these are Band-Aids, basically, that we're talking about in some situations.
And they can stop some of the smarties, definitely. Right. But I just want to say that I really encourage all my listeners who may be dealing with this kind of criticism, any kind of criticism in their marriage, to consider the WifeSaver's education membership. We'll completely turn that boat around. So now that we can identify the most chronic toxic form of that projective criticism, I hope that you can focus on, listener, on building up your own confidence so that you can confront his comments, because you understand what's behind the words, you're prepared with the optimal responses. And then those of us who aren't in that kind of toxic situation, we can, the occasional kind of projection where it's a bad day at work and he comes home, puts on that male mask that says, let's fight. You can understand it, what's going on behind a little bit, and know that you're not really so connected with it, not take it personally. And then there's that unintended kind of criticism where he really is coming from a well-intentioned place. He thinks he's actually helping your life. You can start to perceive those two and treat them a little more generously and not so serious. More benevolent, but benevolence is a good word, if you will. And here's the good thing. Now that you understand all these forms of criticism, you won't take every little thing he says, and we can really start to build that relationship to that level of real trust, real love, real partnership. And then, like I can with you, I can go to you and say, what can I do better? What should I have done? I know I hurt you. What might I have said differently? Or I can come to you and ask for constructive criticism. Now we're building a marriage. Now we're building that powerful, romantic partnership that we all want.
So, Ramona, the talk around town is about some sort of masterclass that you've got going? Is that what I'm hearing on the underground?
And I know you don't like the part about the emotional underbelly.
Yeah, that kind of feels like I'm getting ripped open like a fish.
Well, you kind of are, but it really opens women's eyes, and I think they're going to love it. All they have to do is go to wifesavers.org/masterclass.
Home is with you wherever that may